Jeffrey hasn't received a notification just yet, but he goes back onto Tinder just to double check. Wait, what? Where did she go? No, she wouldn't have unmatched me. No, she wouldn't have. It's too late. Jeffrey's left with just 3 matches. Jeffrey starts swiping again, hoping to meet her. Right. 0 matches. He looks in the mirror and objectively, Jeffrey is actually not an ugly man, but he's starting to feel that way. And because he feels that way, it starts to become a reality. This is the brutal truth of Tinder. Adonis. Adonis uses Tinder just like Asian men pay their taxes. He doesn't. But let's see him try. One of Adonis's tribe members passes him a smartphone. Adonis chooses out his best pictures and starts swiping. Match after match after match. But what's interesting is that Adonis doesn't really seem happy about this. He's confused and wonders why anyone would degrade themselves to this level, to be judged purely on a couple of their pictures, as if they don't bring anything else to the table. This is how humans date. Adonis is not impressed. How exactly is Tinder fucking up the mental health of our generation? It starts with a lack of consequences of displaying your attraction, your interest in someone. Because previously, let's say 20 years ago, if you were an adult then, if you were a man then, you would have met a woman by your social circle, or at least in your community. You would have seen her, been attracted to her, walked over to her and flirted, displayed your interest. You would have done that knowing that people around you may have been looking. And so you would have really restrained your interest up until you really found a girl that you were attracted to, because of that level of social judgment around, you know, oh, look, Jeffrey's going to approach that girl right now. But with online dating, specifically Tinder, but even Instagram, no one really needs to see your approach. And so men's standards go down and down and down, because you may as well just fucking right swipe every single girl. It's more efficient, honestly. It is more efficient. I'd say 90% of men follow the strategy of swipe right on everyone and unmatch or filter out the I don't know if I should say this, and unmatch and filter out the kinds of women that you are not interested in. And we won't be insulting towards them, but maybe you can guess what that group would be for yourself. If this was a singular approach in a man that was encapsulated in a vacuum, so it was completely by itself, okay, one man is doing this approach of swiping right on every girl, it would work quite well. But the majority of men are doing it. The majority of men are right swiping and showing interest into girls they normally wouldn't in like public at daytime to approach in person, which now means that on the other hand, women are receiving an overwhelming amount of attention, of likes, of DMs from guys. What's very, very interesting is that these women are receiving that attention from guys who normally wouldn't, like, I know this sounds horrible, who normally wouldn't want to be seen with them in the daytime, because it's kind of inconsequential for, let's say, with this autistic rating scale, you know, rating people out of 10, but like an 8 out of 10 guy, it's not unheard of that he would message and try to just hook up with a 5 out of 10 girl. What really should happen is that a 5 out of 10 guy should message the 5 out of 10 girl, and both of these people are essentially perfect for each other. But because of these platforms reducing the consequences of a man showing interest to a woman who he normally wouldn't want to be with, an 8 can message a 5. And this is where the real problem begins, because this 5 out of 10 girl, and I know it sounds stupid as fuck saying, oh, out of 10, like, I've always hated this like rating metric shit, but for the purposes of explanation, pretty much everyone can understand what I'm really getting at here. This 5 out of 10 girl is now getting messages from guys who are 5s, even some guys who are 4s, but also from guys who are 6s, 7s, 8s, maybe a couple of 9s. Who is she gonna pick? So she's gonna see a message from a guy who's an 8 and like think, oh shit, like he's really hot. And oh, he's got game, and like, oh, he wants to meet me, okay. They're gonna meet, sleep with each other, and it's gonna be somewhat ingrained in her personality. Yup, this is the level of man that I attract. And now, this girl almost thinks that she's on this level. She can't, like, she's not bad for thinking this. We can't really blame her for this. And now she will not accept anything less than this 8 out of 10. But the issue is that these 8s here, who maybe still message her, know her true worth, her true value, and they probably don't want to commit to her. They probably don't want to get into something which is like really long term. They're really just messaging her for like a late night hookup, but it's too late. Her self-image has been inflated. Now, usually boosting your self-image is an incredibly powerful thing, but in this one instance, in terms of modern dating, especially like Tinder and Instagram DMs and, you know, all the other dating apps, it really does seem to skew a lot of problems, because now this girl who is technically here, but who thinks that she's here, will never feel okay with getting with a guy who's here. She will always feel like she's settling with being with a guy who she's actually on the level with. The guys that she now is interested in, it's extremely likely that they will actually really, really want to be in a relationship with her, because these guys actually want to get with like the real 8s. So what does this mean? If you are one of these guys at the top, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, you get your pick from the majority of women. And it's easier than ever as a guy in this small group, like not many guys, okay, the majority of men are fucking pathetic and lazy and fat and everything, so the majority of men are way down here. But if you're in the small 5 to 10% of men group here, you will have the easiest time perhaps in humanity to be able to sleep with a lot of women. But if you are in the majority of men, 80 to 90% of men, if you're an average guy, you will struggle heavily because the women on your level are currently being fucked by the guys up there. This means that the overwhelming majority of men are incredibly lonely, deprived from intimacy, deprived from sex, love, affection. What's also interesting, the same is said for the overwhelming majority of women. They're deprived from love, they're deprived from real connection, affection, relationships. The only one thing that they have that like the majority of men don't is just sex. But the sex that they are actually having with those top tier guys often leaves these women quite unfulfilled and feel like they're being used. In the end, out of this entire thing, it's a deep conversation if we really push there, but like the sexual revolution of feminism, in the end, only the top tier men win. Even the top tier women, like the most attractive, beautiful women, even if you ask them, they'll kind of say it to you like they're not really happy with modern dating. If you ask them like, are you totally fulfilled with your dating life? The overwhelming majority, even of the top women, will say no, of course not. Whereas if you ask all these people, really the only kind of person will be that absolute top tier guy who'll be like, yeah, like I'm shagging loads, bro, I love it. In the end, no matter what happens, no matter what political leader is in power, no matter what social movement happens, I promise you this is the case. In the end, the high value men always win. And so now we have perhaps the biggest problem of our time. It is this skew of the dating market. It is that 80 to 90% of men are so utterly lonely, deprived, have literally zero women interested in them. Perhaps 50 years ago, a man who was a 5 out of 10 could work hard, get a decent job, save up some money, and he suddenly would have been really attractive to a woman who kind of needed that into her life. But now, most women are self-sufficient. Most women are educated. They work their own jobs, make their own money. So dating a guy just because he has like a good job is no longer a big angle of attraction. Whereas 50, 100 years ago it was, because it was like an acquirement of resources that they probably couldn't really get by themselves. This is leading us to a very interesting dynamic, and I think it's best summed up in a quote that Rollo Tomasi uses very, very well, which is that women would rather share the alpha rather than be saddled with the beta. A lot of people cringe at like the terms alpha male, beta male, but I think they perfectly describe what's happening here. Alpha simply just means like the best of the pack. Women would rather share that guy up there and be one of the women that he's dating and sleeping with, rather than be saddled with a guy who's on their level or below their level, but then have like him being faithful. This guy down here being faithful to a girl here isn't as exciting as this guy up here sleeping with her, but then her also going through the negative emotions because she knows this guy's also sleeping with 4 other girls right now. This dynamic was pretty much always happening in all of humanity. The top tier men always had more than one woman, but now it's on steroids because of Tinder, because of Instagram, because of specifically because of online dating. Because previously this woman here would simply try to get the best man that she could attract, which would be the guy in her church who had like a nice job. But now this woman here, the best man she can attract is some guy in Dubai who's messaged her this weekend. If you're a young man, you're still in the education system, or maybe you've just started getting into the workplace, I guarantee there's at least one woman in your workplace or classroom who is literally being messaged by like a multi-millionaire. How fucked is that? So these modern platforms, Instagram, Tinder, are just allowing women to have an incredible abundance of options because it's such a low consequence for a man to just express some interest in a woman with a simple DM or a Tinder like. And even though this seems kind of inconsequential, you know, it's Tinder and, you know, men are lonely, like this is very fucking big. I say it somewhat often and some people think I'm joking or being over dramatic. Countries literally burn to the ground when this dynamic happens. When the majority of men in your country are not getting a fundamental need fulfilled, which is love. Think about what's going to happen. The single biggest motivator that men have to be productive, to work hard, to accomplish something, it's love, intimacy, sex, reproduction, having children. When that is not being met and they totally believe, they are certain that it will not be met anytime soon, that even if they put in the work, they will not be able to attract a woman, they give up, they get complacent. They may as well succumb to the hooks of porn and video games. When your country is full of men who are choosing to watch porn instead of improving themselves, to get love and real women, you have a country that is very ready to fall. When the barbarians come to the gates, and those barbarians, like the enemy, like the men from a different country, are fighting for their wives because they don't have like Tinder and Instagram as much in their country. And here you have the men who are hooked onto porn. They have nothing to fight for. They don't even like your country. This sounds fucking crazy because you and I have never been in like a real war before, especially if you've lived in the West. We've never really seen firsthand the consequences of war. It's like a distant thing that we hear about in history. This is how countries fall. This is how wars start. And there's not many people really talking about this. But we can and we are waging our own war right now. We are at war against the technocracy. We are at war against these modern social media, porn, video game companies that have stripped away our right to our consciousness, our right to our attention in time. It is these evil companies that have hooked your family, your friends, your future wife. They've hooked their attention. They've fucked their mental health. A man that you know will kill himself within the next 2 to 3 years, and that will be heavily influenced by a part of these technologies. We are at war against them. What you see before you is a revolution. We are a cult of young men who refuse to sit idly by or to sink deeper into the grasp of social media, porn, and video games. We've taken a big step back. We are at war, and I want you to join our side. Click this video to learn more right now. Do the hard work, especially when you don't feel like it. Mwah.